CX Centric Conversation.
So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It is so nice to meet everyone. I very much look forward to hopefully meeting in person. I was in um, Brussels for 10 hours once, so I would like to return there and hopefully get to spend a little more time. And it was so exciting to see where else in the world everyone is located. I am in New Jersey and spend a lot of time between Dow Jones, Princeton, New Jersey, and New York City offices. So, Lichtenstein, it's great to meet all of you. I've been at Dow Jones for about 14 years, which always sounds insanely scary. But I always say, really, what has kept me there, it has never been the same day twice. There is always something interesting and completely always changing in the news space. And as it's been great through this process getting to know Elena, and we really found so many areas where I think it's the same challenges regardless where you work. And it's been really great to see that we face so many of the same challenges. And very much that whole notion of it's always changing really resonated with both of us. Oh, sorry.
Sorry about the pop-up.
No, it's okay. So I always like to use a visual really to kind of explain how we view and talk about customer experience design. This is certainly, I think the slide on the left you may have seen before. I've seen a lot of UX designers and others in CX use this. So this whole notion of you could build the most wonderful thing in the world, such as this lovely paved road here. But if it's ultimately not what your customers want and not how they need to access something, they're going to have to create their own shortcuts, which it looks like many people have done by this worn road. So we like to think about customer experience design as at Dow Jones is really going in before customers are going to have to cut across a lawn, really trying to create the most ideal experience possible, whether we're launching a product, changing a product, really thinking from the customer's point of view, not from anything internally. So not from our marketing, technology, our own customer service, none of their points of view, but really from the customer and what do they ultimately need. And I love this image here. This was at Paddington Station in London. One of my most favorite examples of really, I think, brilliant customer experience design. If you're in the station and you're looking for that Heathrow Express train, you essentially, all of the signs, which for some reason in the US, there are no signs like this, are on the ground. You don't even really need to read English. You can look for this color and it's directly guiding you exactly where you need to go. When you're getting off a plane or you're rushed, I think it's just such a great example of trying to make things as easy and as simple for your customer as possible. So ideally, everything that we would work on in design would very much ends up looking like this type of experience. So when we say Dow Jones, a lot of people think it's the Dow Jones Industrial Average, but we're a suite of media products. We are owned by News Corp. Really, our flagship products on the consumer side are Wall Street Journal, Barron's, and Market Watch. We have a number of B2B products as well, Factiva, Risk and Compliance, and Newswire products. These are specifically on the Factiva side, tend to be purchased more by researchers and whatnot at directly at corporations across the world. And then also we have a series of events that we're putting on a view of live journalism, if you will, with different C-suite executives, as well as just with our reporters around the world. So WSJ Live, we do a Future of Everything festival, which is actually coming up, which is really bringing together different thought leaders on different topics. Of course, all of this has gone virtually for over the past year. And then WSJ Pro, which is almost like a hybrid product, diving into certain specific industries like bankruptcy, cybersecurity, really almost that hybrid of B2B, B2C space. So I'm a small team. We work across all of these products. It's always interesting to see how B2B, B2C, at the end of the day, customers are customers. And really, there are numerous parallels, I think, and things that we try to bring together as much as possible across the products. This is a bit around, so my team again, small team, just 6 of us. We sit as part of a larger customer service and experience design team. So those are the teams of the global agents on our B2C and B2B side, as well as training, QA, and all the operations that go into enabling our agents to take customer interactions. So our senior leadership team worked together a little over a year ago to really come up with a clear vision, mission, and core values for the department. And we try to use these really, certainly the core values, which we made it nice and simple, spells out customer. We try to use these with interacting with one another. If we're giving kind of shout outs to say you did a good job, really trying to make sure that everyone is constantly thinking about how we're respecting one another, our opinions that we bring, keeping one another motivated, being educated about what we do as a business, and trying to help one another. So these are just ways that we, talk about how we try to operate as a team, and really what our mission and vision is within our wider Dow Jones organization. So a lot of questions, and when we do breakouts, I will be so curious to hear how you and your organizations kind of organize around all these various acronyms. But I know a lot of questions we're always saying is, CX, UX, what exactly are you guys doing? You're designing, who are you? Where do you fit in? I always try to explain these, we're kind of calling out the departments that we work with. So CI being customer intelligence, as we call them, which is really our market research, CS for customer service. But really at the end of the day, regardless of what team you sit on, you're impacting the customer experience. And there's other departments here as well. I think we try to tell as many people internally, at the end of the day, there's always an impact on the customer. I mean, you could be in, whether you're in HR, whether you're in finance, there's always something at the end of the day that can end up impacting the customer. So again, not to think that, it's just one team and one group of people own the customer experience. Really, as a company, we're really all driving it. So really, what do we do on a day-to-day basis? So this is certainly not everything, but I would say most of our time is spent into really product launches and sunsets. So an example is the Wall Street Journal print app, which I'm going to talk a little bit about in a minute. Factiva registration. So example, just looking at a registration process and saying, hey, why are we only getting X amount of people from step A to step B, and really trying to understand what is that and looking at that. Print market exits, which anyone that is on here in the US, print delivery, I think this probably applies globally too, print transforming more to digital. We have various markets in the UX that are local papers are going out of business and or changing their frequency, and that's impacting our ability to deliver a paper. If we're leaving a market and or there's going to be an impact to a customer, how do we explain that to people? So we spend a lot of time on these, as well as just continuous improvements. Again, looking at how there's always a way to make something easier. There's always a way to improve how our customers are able to share content or get into self-serving, things like that. So we spend time in those areas, as well as new customer groups. It's always amazing how when you step back, and I think as a heart of Dow Jones, we think of being subscriptions and we think of customers coming in that way, but employees, as Jonathan, you were mentioning at the beginning, the whole connection between employee experience and customer experience. We've looked at employees as a group and looking at onboarding. Event attendees is certainly one, and advertisers as well of our products. So more and more, there's different, I would say, groups of these customers that are almost making themselves apparent. Everyone has an experience. So it's always really interesting to kind of, I think, for our team to get involved in those areas and say, what exactly does that mean for those groups of people? And just general customer advocacy. We spend, as I'm sure a lot of you do, tons and tons of time going through our voice of the customer feedback. We listen to calls and or read emails as much as possible, try to get in customer head, and then as well as just sharing best practices and or amazing examples of things that we see. Again, does not have to be direct competitors. I think us, one of the things we talk about is, everyone is your competition these days. A good experience is a good experience. So we're constantly looking at what others are doing, and whether it's a great cancel experience or a great way to speak to a customer and say, okay, our customers might appreciate this. How can we incorporate this into our work? So just an example project that our team worked on. This was really hard to believe, almost a year ago, but really at the beginning of the pandemic. One of our biggest challenges was really going to be, we have about 1 million customers in the US who receive a daily newspaper, home delivery, the Wall Street Journal, 6 days a week. If COVID was going to impact any of those touch points, so that could be anywhere from literally the printing of the newspaper to delivery to centers where the papers come and are collated and going out for delivery, and then the actual carrier that's delivering it. If any of those things are impacted by COVID, how are we going to get print into people's hands, if you will? Obviously, more and more customers have transitioned to digital, but we always know we have this group of people that we kind of, a persona that we're really referring to as a print traditionalist, who they want their print paper. They have, for various reasons, it's just fits into their lifestyle. We have this great video of a customer who has folded, shows us how the paper's folded, and when he would take the train, this is literally the experience of using that. I think various situations, I mean, that kid probably tends to skew older, but not always. There's just preferences of how people consume content. So beyond saying, okay, we'll go use digital, we're really trying to think, how do you create as much of a print reading experience within a digital environment, having some sort of delivery so that it's not just, oh, it's always on, like an app or a website might be, but really feeling like, no, here's today's, more of an edition format, if you will, and then do it quickly, because obviously when the pandemic was kicking off, like everything, the timeline and who and what would be impacted was very unclear. So very quickly, we had to really solve for this challenge. And where we ended up getting to was we have a reader version that customers are able to come in. If you're a paying member, you could come in. It functions like a PDF, but many customers don't know about it. It was not necessarily easy to access. What we did was take this PDF, if you will, and put it into an app, as well as make it something that could be delivered via email early in the morning. So around 4 a.m. US time, we offered customers the ability to get the print edition emailed to you. When you open that, and you can open that within an app, if you choose, you're literally viewing the newspaper. So you could zoom into a specific article. You're seeing all the advertising that runs in the paper. So yes, you're viewing it on your digital device, but it has that exact feeling of print, if you will. It's a true replica of what's actually in the newspaper that would be delivered. And what our team did to stay involved with this was really think through, and I know this is very small, but just to really illustrate one of several different journeys that we went through, and we really mapped out with the product and marketing team to figure out, okay, well, what are the different access points? How are we going to tell existing customers about this? There are customers that already have some sort of digital entitlement. There are some customers that haven't done that. How are we going to tell them to download the app first, or are we going to just tell them about this app? We were going through all these different scenarios to really make sure at the heart of this, we were thinking through any barriers to entry, and anything that a customer might need to know in any sort of communication or the order of operations to make sure it would be a clean reading experience. So the box that's in red, which I realize you can't read, but that was an example of one where we realized there was going to be a pain point. If you had downloaded this app, but you didn't actually have a digital credential set up, you weren't going to be able to access it. So we realized, okay, because of doing that exercise and mapping this out, we really need to adjust the order of operations for specific groups of customers. So this, I realize this is also an eye chart, but this is something else that we are doing more and more, which is beyond just doing that, really this being a journey, which is very process and communications oriented. This is more of this empathy map, which we're really taking a specific customer's experience and pulling out what's positive, what's negative, and really trying to show back to the business and even for ourselves, where did this certain experience go wrong and what went well, and then what are the opportunities to improve it. So this is an example just of a specific print customer who had some issues along the way. As you know, anything red was hit a pitfall, couldn't access something, had to contact customer service. So we use this really as a tool to show back to the business, like I said, this is exactly what a specific customer went through, so that it's not just something that's theoretical, and coming from a place of we're not just looking at almost like a risk management of what could go wrong, but here's an example of something for a customer that is already a problem and how we might go about trying to solve for that. I'll say before my last slide, I mean, what was most exciting about this project was it's always great sometimes when you have to do something very quickly. We had a big number of us that came together to work on this, and it really did launch within about, I would say, a month to 6 weeks. And a year into this now, we have over 100,000 customers that are signed up to get that daily newsletter. It's one of our most opened and read emails that goes out every day, which is great. We are really the biggest reason why anyone does contact us in the US is really around that paper delivery. So we know that there are groups of customers that is just not going to go away. They are going to want a paper in their hands. But it was a really good exercise in thinking through how do you preserve an experience as much as possible, but bring it to another medium.
CX Centric Conversation.